He was mortified. He knew this is exactly how he usually acted, and he hated it. Beyond the embarrassing misery he felt in this moment, he wanted to strangle this Stacy whore. He went against his usual subdued nature and decided to act. He looked her straight in the eye and said, "And what the hell do you know about it, huh?" Everyone got very quiet. Stacy was taken aback. She didn't say anything and looked pretty embarrassed. Anderson stood up and walked to the bathroom to relieve himself of urine in the other's presence. He felt a blackening rage that didn't come around very often. He was quite an unconfrontational person. He splashed some water on his face to mentally and physically cool down. He rejoined the party. Ugh. By now, Anderson was a little less than sober. He wasn't angry anymore, but he was done playing with the rest of these fools. He sat down on the couch with a whiskey and away from the crowd and chomped on his fat cigar, listening to the latest big band tune on the radio next to him. He was basking in solidarity. He watched all three of his fellow males try their luck with Amber and Stacy. They'd all drunk less than Anderson, but were acting as if they were far drunker. The girls stumbled around, spilling drinks, while the guys took advantage of them. This was a shit show. Eventually, Matthew tumbled over to where Anderson was sitting and fell down next to him. "Shit, Andy, I forgot you was here," he said. "The famous Anderson Hood. Robert Frost be damned." He began laughing hysterically. Anderson didn't say anything. Amber approached, Stacy in tow, and said, "Did someone say Robert Frost? I absolutely love Robert Rost." She looked at Matthew. "What the hell is he laughing about?" "Beats me," Anderson said. She sat down on the floor in front of the couch. Now Thad and Jack had arrived to see what the commotion was about. "Is Andy going to read a poem?" Thad excitedly asked. Mumbled, to be more accurate. "Yeah, read us a poem, Anderson," Stacy yelled drunkenly. She plopped down on his lap and threw her arms around him. Anderson grimaced. Her breath smelled like vomit. She had probably already embraced the toilet just as she was embracing Anderson now. He pried her arms off his neck. She fell sideways off his lap but didn't seem to mind his rejection. She probably didn't even know where she was. She sat up and waited patiently for the poem recitation to begin. "Gee, I don't know, guys," Anderson said. "Don't you ever get tired of hearing them sometimes?" Jack thrust his drink in the air and bellowed, "Hell no! Poem!" Stacy laughed and jumped into his arms. The rest of the crowd followed Jack and yelled out, "Poem!" several times in unison, or as close to unison as they could get. Jack sat down next to Amber and put his arm around her, as Thad leaned against the nearby wall. Stacy fell back onto the couch next to Matthew. Anderson Hood's audience was eagerly awaiting. Anderson let out a deep sigh and downed his 8th, 9th, or 10th whiskey of the night. "Christ, why the hell not?" he said with a crooked grin. They all cheered. He pulled a crumpled up piece of paper out of his back pocket and read it over one time in his head before he began. "Read the damn thing already," Matthew said, and slapped Anderson on the back. Anderson turned towards Matthew and gave him a piercing look. Matthew knew why, and he quickly apologized. Anderson sighed again and said, "All right, this one's called I hide my scars with booze and cars." The whole crowd sat up real straight, eager to hear. A few were already applauding for the name alone, though it's doubtful that the name really moved them in any way. They were just excited to hear Anderson speak. He began. "I might dress real nice, but it's all just to cover the real strife. And I might drive real fast, but only 'cause I want to outrun my own ass. And I might drink and smoke to excess, but it's only to forget that my life is a mess. And I might smile and follow it up with a joke, but you have to realize, folks, I feel nothing but broke. Because I'm not what you think I am. I am a male, but much less than a man. I don't have much but tears and complaints. I'm just a victim of this life and all its restraints. So I hide my scars with booze and cars. I wish my body to the grave while I keep my head in the stars. But I can't see myself as the deceiver much longer. I hope someone save me, because I can't see myself getting any stronger." Anderson folded the paper and returned it to his pocket. He looked out over the crowd. Their eyes were wide. They were totally immersed. Though Anderson hated performing, he loved the feeling of a successful performance, even if none of his audience could understand a word of what had just clumsily fell from his lips. But even if he had been speaking coherently, none of them would understand. Nobody could ever understand. They applauded, and for a moment Anderson was happy. But Anderson's bliss was suddenly replaced with confusion. For the next thing he knew, everyone was back to the shit show they were in before the poem, laughing and tripping over one another, and he was wrapped up in Stacy's arms, kissing her hard. They stopped kissing, and he held her close, whispering, "Don't worry, baby. I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you." Then he suddenly found himself in the bathroom, vomiting his brains out. He would remember none of what happened next, but the others would tell him in the morning. Anderson spent the next 3 hours stumbling around and gruffly informing everyone of how good a poet he was and how bad he wanted to read again. Eventually, he ended up in the bathroom again, singing his new poem to himself loudly and puking every so often. I hide my scars, bleh, with booze, and cars, bleh. He sporadically shouted out random obscenities, cursing everyone, but especially his own pathetic self, and laughing uncontrollably for regular lengths of time. He punched the walls and bashed his head against the door and slammed his chest into the toilet bowl as he rid himself of booze and pain. When Amber finally took the initiative and went into the bathroom to check on him, she found him passed out on the toilet, bent over forward and almost completely naked. After showing everyone else the spectacle and nearly dying of laughing, she woke Anderson up and helped him get dressed. They sat down against the wall. "You've been putting on quite a show in here," she said. She spoke very gently. She had sobered up quite a bit by now. He laughed. "Don't worry," he said. "I'm not going to hurt nobody. Honest. Tell everyone I ain't going to hurt 'em." He laughed again. He was still pretty trashed. "What are you talking about, Anderson?" "I know they all are afraid of me. I seen the way they look at me. They think I'm strange or something. They always say I look angry, like I'm about to hurt someone. Just 'cause I dress like a gangster don't mean I am one. Just 'cause I smile don't mean I'm happy, you know? Well, you do look pretty rough. But no one's afraid of you. We all love you, Andy. You're just different than us, that's all. But we don't hold it against you. Hell, I think little Maddie's even jealous you write so well." He smiled and said, "Honest to God?" "Honest to God." "I don't write well. I just whine is all. That's all my poems are. A bunch of whining." "Andy, you just spent an hour telling everyone how good you are." Without warning, Anderson began crying. Amber put her arm around him. It only lasted a moment. "When am I allowed to be happy and have fun like you guys?" Anderson asked after composing himself. "Well, I think you can be happy whenever you damn well please." "I wish. Sometimes I think I'm going to die bitter, you know, all alone." "Don't even think about that. You got a lot of years left in you." He smiled. "Maybe, maybe not. A cyclone could rip through this house right now, or those red bastards could drop a bomb on us at any moment. With the bad energy I carry around with me, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened." Amber didn't say anything. They didn't speak for a moment. "I'm sorry," Anderson said to break the silence. "Sorry for what?" "I know men aren't supposed to cry, but I can't help it. I cry all the time." "I don't think there's anything wrong with the guy crying. Besides, you're an artist, and who ever heard of an artist who didn't cry? You don't think I'm a girl for it or nothing?" "Nope." "That's nice. You're a good girl." Anderson laid his head down on her lap. Before he fell asleep, he whispered, "I hide my scars with booze and cars," and laughed again. After he fell asleep, she quietly left him. When Anderson awoke, it was about 9 in the morning. His right fist was split and bloody, as were the walls. His chest was bruised from slamming into the toilet as he vomited uncontrollably. There was a bump on his forehead. He had really done a number on the bathroom and himself. On top of everything, I can't even hold my liquor, he thought. As he left the destroyed bathroom, he noticed that everyone had already left except Amber, Stacy, and of course Matthew. Stacy was asleep, sprawled out on top of the kitchen table, but Amber, and Matthew, who were sitting on the couch smoking dope, howled with laughter as Anderson entered the room. "There he is," Matthew said. "We didn't know you was a poet and a singer." "What the hell are you talking about?" Anderson replied as he sat down on the floor in front of the couch. They explained to him how he had spent his time after he finished reciting his poem. Amber didn't mention their talk. When the explanation was finished, Anderson put his head in his hands and sighed. Though it was quite humorous to picture himself passed out on the toilet, he mostly felt shame for the way he had acted. But really, he had nothing to be ashamed of. He had practically told them all how he felt about life through his words and actions, and they were completely oblivious. They were too busy enjoying themselves. Not even Amber knew his secret. Nothing had changed, for better or for worse. He was still alive despite his best efforts. He was still alive to continue living on the edge and trudge through the wasteland of this life until death finally took pity on him and showed him mercy. He stood up and walked to the kitchen to make a whiskey, then returned to the living room with it. "Quite a night, huh, Andy?" Matthew said. "Real funny night." "Yeah," Anderson responded. "A real riot." He sighed and took his first drink of the day. And that is I Hide My Scars with Booze and Cars. Yeah, I fucked up a lot, but it's because they changed some stuff. Fucking publishers, right? I don't have any other stories that have been accepted, so it's probably going to be a while till I'm on here again, but hope you enjoyed. Go get laid, guys.